This is a Pele Media podcast.
Welcome back to Goonies Minute, everybody. Goonies Minute is the fan podcast where we carefully explore the movie Goonies minute by minute. This is Brady.
And this is Chris.
And we are here to bring you minute number 67 of the Goonies. Today, Chris, how you doing?
Doing well. It's a late night podcast tonight.
You know, to give away some industry secrets, we, Goonies Minute anyway, record these at different times.
This night is a little bit later than
usual. This night is a little bit later. What is it, 3 a.m.? We've both just come back from the bar, too, which might be evident within our... You know,
yeah, a couple too many ginger ales.
Couple too many. Couple too many.
Couple
that makes
too
sense.
many. Yeah.
Let's see if we can get through the minute.
Let's see if we can get into the minute.
Let's see if we can get into it. In the previous minute, Mikey encouraged the Goonies to push on with their quest and not to go up the well to safety. Andy was still on the fence about it as the minute ended. At minute 67, Troy and his buddies are laughing at the top of the well as the bucket is slowly being pulled up. When the bucket arrives, they see that the only thing on it is the sweater Troy had given Andy. Troy takes the sweater and furiously screams out her name. We cut back to the dungeon. Sloth is watching a cooking show. The host is showing how to bake a chocolate cake. Sloth is excited by the sight of the chocolate. Chunk asks Sloth if he's hungry. He pulls a Baby Ruth candy bar from his pocket and throws it to Sloth. The candy bar hits Sloth in the head and falls to the ground. There is a moment of tense silence. Sloth suddenly screams out. In his frustration, Sloth takes the chains and begins to pull them from the wall. And thus ends minute 67 of the Goonies. All right, so we start this minute off with something you've been really excited about, and that is the line, the epic line of Troy's, and I'll let you say it.
Andy, you Goonie!
Which I have mistaken my entire life up until this moment when we're taking notes for it. I always thought he was saying, Andy, you Goonies, as in, you Goonies, you took my girl from me. But it's not the plural. He's saying you Goonie, as in, Andy, you're a Goonie now. You're not, you left me. You more or less cheated on me for this lifestyle as a Goonie.
Yeah, I mean, before he screams this, you can see the rage build in his face, the veins popping, and even though, we talk about him being a predator, which we haven't, all we've seen is, we know he's a predator, but, you see him looking down her shirt and everything, and then a possible attempted murder suspect, which it's obviously he would have done it when he held Brand's arm to the car. But more importantly here, this shows the rage of... This guy's crazy.
Yeah,
I mean,
he
this
really
is crazy.
Yeah,
this is no fun and games guy. I mean, this is fury.
Yeah, and we laugh about the over-the-topness of him and his boys and just everything that Troy's doing or whatever, but there is a long, long pause. Not pause, but they really hold on him. And that
as it builds,
frustration,
a crescendo, a catharsis about to happen.
The bucket comes up. And his laughter kind of just wears off, but he's still kind of smiling, and that smile slowly goes into just the stern look. And his buddies are backing off because they know whatever. And then he has his epic line, "Andy, you Goonie," which is much more effective now that I hear that it's him referring to her.
Right, and leading up until the last minute. To the end of the last minute, this was when Andy made the decision to stay with the Goonies and break away from that outside world, that world of Troy and the fake people, the country club society, that she showed solidarity with the Goonies. She officially became a Goonie.
By sending up that sweater.
And all Troy does is reiterate this to the audience at this point in time.
True. Yeah. All right, so we cut to Chunk and Sloth in the dungeon, and we see Sloth's reflection in the TV.
Really interesting.
It looks like the mask, or whatever it is, isn't finished. His eyes aren't open, and then, of course, we cut to the close-up of his face, and, of course, both his eyes are open. All of that.
Definitely a flaw. Definitely not his current reflection. When they cut to actually seeing him, his makeup is complete, and his eyes are different.
Right.
And it's not like that in the reflection.
Yeah, they're not really trying to hide
That's definitely
it.
A little bit of a mistake there. But
Now,
I do like the way he looks in the reflection. It's pretty kind of interesting.
it is. I looked into what he's watching, the cooking show, and there's two things I came across. Nobody was really that sure of it, and one is Cookin' Cheap. It was a PBS show in the 80s. And then the other one is a cooking show hosted by Craig Claiborne, who was a famous food critic in the 80s. And unfortunately for Sloth, this is what they play for him. Now, I always assumed, again, it's just whatever the antenna on that little TV is going to pick up down there. And this just happened to be what it was, and it's the most boring thing ever. But as we decided earlier, when Jake brings down the tray of food, he puts it just out of reach of Sloth to torture him and to mess with him like, hey, here's all this delicious food. Well, here they are playing a cooking show, and he can't have food. And so it's almost like them torturing him.
It is torture, and we see his love for chocolate.
Yeah.
You see it on the TV, although I think they might have, if they would have served human right there at that point in time, he might have been excited to get a piece of it. But, we see that he loves chocolate. Chunk realizes that he loves chocolate, and he offers him a Baby Ruth. But then this brings up, he throws and hits Sloth in the head, and there's a pause for a second. And there's utter fear of Chunk. It's like, oh my gosh, I've just pissed this guy off. And this is a scene that, as a young child, scared me silly. Whenever he threw and hit Chunk, hit Sloth, because I still was not sure about him at the time. And when he starts screaming, I remember that always as a kid, that really scared me. And it scared Chunk also, until they could finally realize that his fury was not
being hit in the face.
Right, being hit in the face. It was the continual not being able to get that food.
Yeah.
That was his true anger.
It's the Baby Ruth is the ultimate motivator. But that's a great way for them to establish that we're not supposed to be afraid of Sloth, in that Chunk is the first person who's going to offer him something and help him. And, slow as he may be, Sloth can still realize sympathy whenever he sees it. And I like the fact that the movie doesn't make you try and figure out if Sloth is a bad person or someone to be feared.
Right, we talked about that.
Yeah, they set it up pretty quickly that no, he's just the dude who's going to be a comic relief and kind of a sweet presence for...
One thing that I did want to mention, because I know you're going to talk about the actor that played Sloth, but one thing I wanted to mention, he makes that last-ditch effort to break the chains.
Yeah.
The noise he makes, I compare it to a controlled Arnold Schwarzenegger scream. Arnold Schwarzenegger has countless times in his movies when he's struggling, and he's like, that is the Arnold Schwarzenegger scream. But Sloth has a much more controlled, which it was a lot more in control than Arnold Schwarzenegger when he screamed. So that's one thing I noticed.
Sloth. Sloth was played by John Matuszak, who was a defensive end for the Oakland Raiders and actually won 2 Super Bowls. So imagine that. He was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1950 and was kind of picked on for being kind of gawky in school, and that sort of motivated him to become, just a weightlifting champ, and eventually moved into professional football. And then, of course, caught the acting bug and moved into acting in TV in the 80s. Listen to some of the TV shows he was in. Perfect Strangers, MASH, Dukes of Hazzard, Hunter, The A-Team, Miami Vice, and Cheers, which is like some of the biggest series throughout the 80s. And then as far as movies are concerned, not quite as stellar, Caveman and One Crazy Summer.
A lot of big hits there.
A lot of big hits there, yeah. But, let's see. And he died on June 17th of 1989 at just 38 years old. But we say that, he wasn't in that many, stellar movies. But, I mean, he created an iconic character in Sloth. Someone that, you could say, hey, you guys, to someone who might not have ever seen the Goonies, and they know who you're talking about.
And most actors don't have huge careers, and he had a better career than the average actor.
Absolutely.
There's no question.
Yeah.
And being a part of some of these other TV shows, sitcoms, I mean, Cheers and Perfect Strangers. Cheers is one of the greatest sitcoms of all time. Perfect Strangers was popular for many years.
Mm-hmm.
But, getting back to the fact that he played defensive line for the Raiders, he reminds me of a fellow teammate of his, Lyle Alzado, who also tried out the acting gig, was popular in commercials and things like that, and also died at a very young age. You know, he abused drugs, and the cause of death for John Matuszak was also drug use.
They said
enlarged heart.
Yeah.
A lot of times you see that. A lot of people that have abused steroids, cocaine, things like that over time, because the heart works so hard, it gets enlarged. Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't know why that actually kills somebody.
Yeah, you know, it's very unfortunate that both of those guys had to die so young. But again, like we were saying, Sloth is just such an iconic character, and
he's just scratched the surface of what he can do, what
absolutely.
he does in this movie, and you know, he plays as important role as any towards the end.
Absolutely,
but yeah. That's pretty much all I have for this minute.
I've got a little bit more, and it is that Sloth's makeup actually took 5 hours to apply, and the fake eye that he has was remote controlled off screen, and the controller had to say, "Okay, John, in 5 seconds, we're going to have you blink. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and that's when he would know to blink, so both eyes would be in sequence. And so trying to do that while maintaining that voice and just play slow in the way that he is takes some skill.
I mean, you imagine how many days of filming having to put in all that.
Well, he was also told, and I'm going to come back to Sloth and the makeup and things like that as we go, but I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Whenever they were shooting on the pirate ship, the kids were told everybody was told don't get him wet because he will, the makeup will screw up or whatever. And of course, it was kind of difficult to avoid that, so it would delay filming by several hours. But yeah, that's all I've got for today. How about you?
That's it for me.
All right, awesome. Thanks so much for joining us today, everybody. We will see you back here tomorrow for minute number 68, and until then, this is Brady.
And this is Chris.
And we're here to remind you the Goonies
never say die.
Goonies Minute is a fan-supported podcast. If you like the show, then leave us a review on iTunes. You can find us at GooniesMinute.com, Facebook.com/GooniesMinute, Twitter.com/GooniesMinute, and at Instagram @GooniesMinute. You can contact us at GooniesMinute@gmail.com. You've been listening to a Pele Media podcast. For premium content and exclusive podcasts, visit us at Patreon.com/Pele Media. Check us out on Facebook at Facebook.com/Pele Media, and follow us on Twitter at Twitter.com/Pele Media.